right, so right about to do the fronts. Put it in, took the front out. I'm putting NTCs on the threads, kind of a standard thing that I like to do. It preserves the shock, especially in winter, and it allows adjustability of the air struts. Because most air struts, as if you guys known from previous videos, they do seize at the lower mounts because it's got the most contact, obviously, right? So it doesn't hurt to put a dab of NTCs, especially you know, this car is going to be all year driven for now, I believe. So I'm thinking he's going to do a lot more to the car. Pretty sure it's going to go wide body and other crazy things, but for now this is what we're working on. So I took the front apart, like as I was showing you guys in the previous video. It's not too hard to remove the fronts. I do like to remove the covers just because it exposed the tunnel where I'm going to be running the lines. So I'm going to put the fronts in, and I'm going to run the lines into the frunk, which is what I uncovered, and I'm going to start working on the rears. So hopefully I get the fronts and the rears in today. If not, there's no rush. So I removed the frunk. Yeah, so it's kind of cool with these cars, as you guys all know, or maybe you don't. With the Teslas, obviously it's half a motor. It's not like a traditional car. So there's the coolant system right here, I believe, that cools the batteries in the whole car so it doesn't overheat. And there's some electronics here. It has a startup battery, or it has like an accessory battery, which makes sense. But the struts are over here underneath the frunk. And in addition to the frunk, which is like additional space where a lot of the Tesla guys and girls have a tendency to do their air suspension setups. I've seen some air suspension setups in the trunk, and the frunk was completely covered. But this one we're going to do in the front just because for show purposes. But in the rear you have a completely accessible trunk as well, so you get kind of a premium space when it comes to electric cars, just because of the fact that there's plenty of space. But anyways, so I'm in the process of putting in the fronts. I'm gonna run the lines from the front into the front. I'll find a cool way to route them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do static air. So I'm going to inflate it so at least the car will be movable. And then what I'll do is I will lower the fronts, and then I'm going to start working on the rears. So I'll have complete sort of access to all the air lines for the front and from the rear. And that way I'll be able to move the car around if I need to. And then we're going to start working on the front. So that's pretty much the goal, and we're going to do that in a couple parts. So enjoy. Okay, so we're back. A couple things when you're removing the strut assembly. Obviously, this is a rear-wheel drive Tesla, so it's a lot easier. If it's an all-wheel drive or dual motor for two diffs, obviously, it's going to be a lot harder in the front. That's why you have a fork. So you're going to have to remove the tie rod over here to make way to be able to remove everything. So it's a little bit more involved. So rear-wheel drive one's much more fun anyways. And that's what that is. So as I said, remove the end links. This whole assembly is removed, basically. The easiest way to do it is when you're loosening up all the bolts that are up here. The easiest way to slide it out from this side. So I slid it out, I took it out. So not from here because you have the tie rod end over here, but from this side over here because it's a lot more open. So push it in, push the lower portion in. Fortunately, I don't have two hands to show you guys, but I'm just going to explain it to you. So it's a little bit easier. But push the bottom all the way out. That tilts the whole assembly, which is sort of the upper mount for support, obviously, and the shock inwards, and then you're able to literally take it out through this opening over here and slide it out, and that's pretty much it. So very, very simple. You got to remove this whole assembly. Now these are 13 mil nuts that are over here. The openings on the top, well, over here, as you can see, they will not allow you to put a 13 mil socket through. Okay, these are actually, the inner diameter is 8 millimeter. That's the inner diameter over here. Okay, any kind of an 8 millimeter inner diameter nut that you find will always require a 13 mil socket If you're lucky, we're not in Canada. I went to Home Depot, I couldn't find it. If you can get a thin 12 mil nut on top over here, it makes it a lot easier to do everything, because you'll be able to basically keep this permanent in there and then be able to swap your struts out will whenever you want. I mean, the idea here is you won't need to now that he's on bags, and it's a lot easier to do it, but this whole assembly still has to be removed with everything, unless you can find a 12 mil, not a 13 mil, outer diameter or not to put in here. And then that way you'll be able to slide a 12 mil socket through these openings. I mean, yeah, I could take a grinder and grind them out in order to fit a 13, but I don't want to, you know, make any modifications to the vehicle. I want to leave it as is. But that's probably would be a better option, because that way what happens is this is never removed and you're able to swap out the shocks at will whenever you want. It's just a little bit of a pain in the ass to be removing everything and stuff like that. So that is definitely an option, to drill these out in order to allow a 13 mil socket through, so that way you don't have to remove this whole assembly to kind of remove the shock. So it's kind of like Tesla. All they had to do is literally make these holes bigger, because these holes will literally only let a 12 mil socket in there, but a 12 mil socket is not enough to loosen up these nuts on top. So it's a little bit you know, funny there, but it is what it is. I don't want to open these up more. I'm just going to leave it as is. It's not a big deal to remove it. But yeah, that's what these are. These inner diameter 8 mil and the outer diameter is actually 13 mil, which kind of sucks, because if I could find, and I know they make nuts that are a lot smaller and thinner, you know what I mean, that will allow a 12 mil socket through. But you know what, I'm going to keep everything sort of OEM and keep it the way it is. Now, why does Tesla employ this special upper mount? The reason why they employ this special upper mount is because these things got a lot of freaking torque. So if you just had the strut here without the support brace, think of this as a support brace over here, you'd be literally chewing this off. This is just not strong enough to be able to withstand the torque of these vehicles. So smart designers, somewhat, because this was kind of stupid, but anyways, smart designers came up with this brace, support brace, that kind of keeps everything together and supports the strut tower in order for you know, these shocks and everything to take the torque. So it's kind of cool. So I just wanted to kind of share it with you guys if you're struggling removing the factory OEM shocks. Now, don't get me even started with the all-wheel drive, because with the all-wheel drive, the only way to actually pull it out will probably be, well, I haven't really worked on one, so I can't say. But when I looked at the airlift manual, they say to remove the tie rod ends. Fortunately, when you're doing the rear-wheel drive, you don't have to. But the best way to do it is basically slide the lower mount of the shock, which is over here, towards in there, and then kind of wiggle it out and pull it out from this side, and it will make it a lot easier to remove. So I'm going to put in the other the other air strut. The other side's already done, and then we're going to run the lines into the area of the frunk, and then I'll be able to do static air for the front and put the wheels on, so I'll be able to lower it off this lift. And in the next part, we're going to be working on the rears. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the rears today. I'm a little bit tired. This is a new vehicle for me, so I'm learning as I go, and I'm kind of improving the ways of doing certain things. But so far, so good. I mean, it's a simple vehicle. It's a simple car. It's literally a frame with a battery, okay? I mean, I love electric vehicles, but at the end of the day, it's a frame with a battery that's probably more smarter than the driver, because of all the electronics incorporated that we don't even know about, half of the shit that's in here. I would love to have an electric vehicle. Maybe one day we'll do a conversion. I've been looking into conversion motors. It appears to be pretty simple, but we're gonna have to I'm gonna have to give it a couple years before I convert mine. I would love to convert the GS into electric, maybe the Civic, if I do end up keeping them. If not, I probably will sell them and pick up a Tesla, because it's a lot easier. So it is what it is. These cars are definitely not designed to last. You start seeing some rust already forming, which as much as you protect them, they are going to start to rust. But this is nothing. This is just surface rust, so no big deal. But yeah, so we're going to get to the rears whenever I get a chance. The rears is a separated setup, so it shouldn't be too bad. All right, and then running the lines. Well, there's a little sort of like tunnel for the cable in the back, so we'll be able to fish the line through on the other side, and it should be okay. So stay tuned. All right. So there's the ladder line. going under here. It's going protruding through here. Put a little bit of a loom to protect it so it doesn't chife up. And it connects up into the ladder just like that. So it gives full range of motion. And the bag is up here. The car is pretty low. I might have to adjust it, and we'll see. I put in about 2.5 inch of threaded. I started initially with 1.5. I added about an inch, so that brought the wheels down a little bit. We think the car was too low. So definitely the shocks are perfect. So we're gonna try with 2.5. 2.5 might be still too short of a shock, because I do want pretty decent lift and a drop balance with this car. So we'll see. Maybe we'll go to about 3.5, add up another inch in order to have a little bit more lift. But I won't know until I actually put in the wheels. I put in the wheels with the 1.5 inch of threaded, and unfortunately the shock was too short. It seemed like the actual wheels were tucking without, even with the air or with the air spring inflated. So it kind of doesn't work out for what I want. So we've increased it by about an inch. We'll see how it's going to sit. I'm going to put some air in it right now. Right now it's on static air, and that pretty much concludes the front. What I might have to do is I might have to increase the threaded part in order to make the shock a little bit longer. We'll see.